Hey there, Cardinal fans, and welcome to another edition of Cardinals Game Day, your source for UIW football news, reviews, and previews. My name is Rory.
And I'm Reyes. Well, Roy, it was another game that the Cardinals are going to want to forget about pretty quickly, wasn't it?
I'd say it's pretty safe to assume that. The Southeastern Louisiana Lions came to San Antonio and put on a clinic, running out winners 63-7. There wasn't a whole lot to celebrate for UIW, but there were some brief flashes.
One of those bright spots was a fairly bleak offense was tight end Cole Wick. He had 3 receptions for 50 yards, 25 of which came off of Cody Edwards' fake pass, which he caught a touchdown on. So really exciting there. The only touchdown the Cardinals have scored since week 1 of the season.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the man who threw the touchdown to Wick and has been very explosive as a kick returner in Cody Edwards. Obviously, making his name as a kick returner primarily this season. I believe he returned for over 80 yards this week, and he had that hurdle where he just about managed to score a touchdown. Compile that on top of the game at Abilene Christian where he beat everyone but the kicker, and I think that it's pretty realistic to expect Cody Edwards to maybe return one in the next few weeks.
Keeping on the subject of special teams, Ramon Cota Jr., the punter kicker, had another good week statistically. He had 8 punts for 385 yards, and he also had won the honorable college mention for College Football Player of the Week in the special teams department.
Yeah, and when you have an anemic offense, you get a lot of opportunities to punt, so it's a very good situation for Ramon Cotto to be in at this point in time. Now, Southeastern Louisiana looks on top of their game, and it wasn't very hard to see why they are ranked number 11 in the FCS, and were the preseason favorites to win the Southland Conference again this year.
Yeah, their offense is pretty solid, particularly quarterback Brian Bennett, who went 13 for 24 with 212 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He also managed to rush for 89 yards and another 2 touchdowns.
The Lions' running game was led by Cody Sutton, who rushed 16 times for 104 yards, averaging 6.5 yards a carry and scoring 1 TD. The Lions' offense put up a total of 564 yards in the game.
That's one of those statistics that really speaks for itself, especially when compared to the 166 yards of the offense produced by the Cardinals. As we say week in and week out here on Cardinals Game Day, our offense really needs to make a huge turnaround.
That's for sure. Keep in mind that our running game only picked up 50 yards for the game, and it gives you a really good perspective on where the offense stands. Reeves and Sessions still haven't shown up this season, and it's costing the Cardinals big time.
In the passing game, the pressure is still on also. Braylon McCullum went 12 for 23 for 92 yards and an interception. Remember, the passing touchdown was stolen by Cody Edwards after a McCullum lateral. Looking at the defensive side, defensive standouts included freshman linebacker George Schwanenberg, who led the team with 11 tackles. He is currently leading the tackle count for the Cardinals this season and averaging 7.5 tackles per game.
Also, Josh Zellers had a pretty good game, recording 6 tackles on the day. He also earned the Cardinals' only sack in the game, and it came with a 5-yard loss. But it's the lack of offense that is killing our defense. The Cardinals managed to make 7 first downs for the entire game this week. 7. When the offense can't move the ball, they can't score, and they don't give the defense a break.
That's a good point. Keep in mind, the scoreline was SLU 28 to UIW 7 at the half. And of course, that's not the type of score that you would like to see at the half, but consider that the Lions scored 28 more points in the third quarter alone. The defense had held as long as they could and gasped for the lack of offensive production, which in turn then the floodgates opened.
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, and we say it all the time, but the Cardinals' offense need a huge swing of momentum if the team is going to attempt to salvage anything from this season. They're 0-5 at the moment, and they still have some very good teams to face.
Which brings us to this week's opponent, Houston Baptist University. It's their first year as a fully fledged member of the Southland Conference, just like us. And the last time the two teams met, UIW managed to pull a 24-3 win, also at Benson Stadium.
The Huskies' most recent game was played against Abilene Christian University this past weekend. The game was very one-sided, with the Wildcats putting on a dominant performance and winning 59-14 at HBU. There were some signs of life in the Huskies' offense, however, particularly in their receiving core.
The Huskies' leading receiver on the season is Kenneth Bibbins, who has 15 receptions for 204 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. The starting quarterback, Jonathan Fleming, has completed about 59% of his passes and also thrown for 7 touchdowns so far this season.
So, Chris, what do you see as the keys to the game for the Cardinals to get a win this week?
Well, the rushing game needs to get on fast. Only giving 18 and 16 yards for our 2 running backs last week. if it's going to be up to them to keep this Cardinals offense on the field and really put up some points on the board. If they're not able to do that, we're going to see our defense really get gassed early on again. And this time, the two wide receivers coming in here for Houston Baptist, Damian Lazard and Kenneth Bivens are really tall guys. Our secondary average height is probably about 5'11". So if you have tall wide receivers on short corners, it's a formula for going over the top all day long and really getting a track meet going at Tom Benson Stadium.
Yeah, look, I'd say that's where our defensive line and our linebackers are going to come into play. They've had some very good performances recently, particularly against Abilene Christian and in the first half against Southeast Louisiana. And if they can get into the backfield and really disrupt the play, put some pressure on the quarterback and force some bad throws or prevent him from being able to throw, that's really going to neutralize the tall receivers. And I think that's going to be one of the keys to the game. But that's all we have time for this week on Cardinals Game Day. Be sure to come out to Gale and Tom Benson Stadium this Saturday and support the team as they take on the HBU Huskies. Kickoff is at 6 p.m. and entry is free with a student ID. As always, thanks for tuning in. My name is Rory.
And I'm Reyes. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next week. Until then, let's go Cardinals.